One, two, three. Hi, this is Chris Gandy here, and I'm the co-host of Advisor Today's podcast, where we feature top leaders in the insurance and financial services industry. Today's episode is brought to you by the National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors, or NAIFA, the #1 association for producers in financial services. At NAIFA, we enhance professional skills, promote ethical conduct, and advocate for legislative and regulatory environments. Today's guest, Suzanne Carawan, that is such a nice way of us saying NAIFA members make more money and they stay in the business a lot longer, and they're pretty happy.
Yeah.
If you're already a member, you know how awesome and satisfying NAIFA is. And if you are in the financial services industry and you're not a member, join today. Here's how you join. If you're interested in becoming a member, go to NAIFA.org. That is NAIFA.org to learn more today. Again, I'll repeat it one more time. That's NAIFA.org, or you can email us at info@NAIFA.org. Today, I have a wonderful guest joining us, and you probably have seen her if you've been around NAIFA. If you haven't been around NAIFA, I'm joined by the wonderful Suzanne Carawan, who also is the co-host of this wonderful podcast. Also, Suzanne is the VP of Marketing and Communications for NAIFA. Suzanne has been with NAIFA for over 4 years and has spearheaded the new brand and overseeing the creation of multiple programs, events, and initiatives. Suzanne is the brand architect and penned and now well known to the new membership promise to advocate, educate, and differentiate. Let's give a round of applause to Suzanne Carawan. So
Thanks.
Suzanne.
Yes, Chris.
I get a chance to interview a wonderful person like you, who I know is just oozing with all this knowledge about marketing and how to be a wonderful advocate for NAIFA and all these wonderful things. So let's get started. And again, we're gonna talk. Just let your hair down, and we're just gonna have some fun. So let me ask a couple questions. How did you come about working with NAIFA? I mean, how did they find you?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I've had quite the journey. They originally hired me. I was a chief marketing officer of a digital agency, and the primary piece that they needed, they said, hey, we really need to add on a digital component and get us moving in the right direction through digital advertising, et cetera, to start to recruit new members and get the brand out there of NAIFA. And so originally I was their consultant for about a year or so and work with them to be able to spearhead some of these initiatives. And then finally they said, hey, they kept asking me to do more and more and more. And then finally they said, you know what, maybe it just makes sense for you to come on board. And so for me, it kind of matched up too. I had a couple of key things. One was, ironically, I had moved from the Washington, D.C. area just maybe 2 years before, and out to Columbus, Ohio. And I said, well, one of the reasons, or one of the pieces, is that I don't want to come back and have to move to back into the Falls Church area, where I literally used to live around the corner from NAIFA, as ironic as that is. And I said, so as long as we can do this remote thing, that would be great. And I'm willing to take the position and come on and spearhead a lot of these initiatives. And they said yes. And this is, again, just to remind everybody, pre-COVID. So I'll just kind of leave that as a big deal, because at the time we didn't have a lot of remote employees. And it's one of the pieces that they created the position for me. And they were gracious enough to let me be able to work from my newfound home of Columbus, Ohio. And I came aboard and I actually started working within the membership department. And it's been, like I said, it's been a journey. I think I've worked in almost every department at this point, trying to get into the right space for what's going to make the most sense to NAIFA. And so that's been a little bit my journey. So really, I guess in reality, I've had 5 years in NAIFA in my life. And just as a fun fact, prior to coming to any of that, I've always been on the technology side. And the fact is that NAIFA has been my client. This is actually the third time. So I had a time when I was working with NAIFA on their content management systems and whatnot, a time that I was putting in and working with NAIFA on their event management systems. And my third time around came in and started working on the marketing automation side and then joined the team full time. So that's been a little bit of my NAIFA journey.
So tell us a little bit about, your early days, what was, and kind of how we've advanced now. I mean,
Yeah.
the old NAFA, the new NAFA, I mean, you've been around for some evolution, and you've kind of seen the involvement that it takes to change a brand. So how have you impacted that as it deals with change?
Yeah, it's a great question. And so when I look back at my career, I usually there's a couple times when I show up. One, I show up when it's a brand new enterprise and you're going to build from the ground up. So I've had many opportunities in my career to be in startup mode. Like I'm, number 1, 2, 3, number 10, at less than 10 people in the firm. And I'm there from the very get-go to grow the thing, et cetera. The second time that I usually show up is when we're doing a turnaround. So you come into a situation and they're like, listen, we've gotten long in the tooth. We need to turn the whole enterprise around. What are the operations we need to do? What is the marketing we need to do? What are the new segments we need to pick up? Pricing, the whole, rebrand it. What do we need to do to repackage and take an entity, take some sort of business and turn it around so it's again to be back on its feet, and whether it's profitable or just healthy or whatever, however you want to measure that. How do we do that? NAIFA was really a unique opportunity for me because it was actually a 2-for-1. It was not only a turnaround, it was a turnaround situation, and then also really very much had smacked of a brand new startup operation. So it was a real challenge for me in my career, and that's what piqued my interest in doing that. I say that because NAIFA, when I joined, was 128 years old. So at 128 years old, it had for 128 years stood in one particular model, which was a federation. So the way that the model was kind of structured is that there was this plethora of chapters all over the country. The chapters all had different boards that govern them. They had different operating budgets. They had different pricing structures, right? They had different branding. That was completely just a loosely federated model, and that really the people came together for 2 important purposes. One, for state legislative activities, and then 2, when it came to the kind of on the federal side, to come together to have one voice at the congressional leader level. And so aside from that, everything was kind of uniquely its own. And again, at the time, there were 600 different legal and financial entities that constituted NAIFA. And so I had the privilege to kind of come in knowing that all of this was coming to a vote. And I started maybe 3-4 weeks before this historic vote. And it happened in May of 2018. And the membership voted themselves to dissolve the current bylaws and put in a new structure. So imagine taking your financial services entity and your whole corporation, or take one of the carrier companies and just saying, hey, we're just going to dissolve it and just like restructure it. And so that's a big deal. So a really big deal. So a historic vote took place in May of 2018. And so the membership voted to restructure the association to be one strong home office, and then 50 strong state chapters and roughly 35 local chapters. So again, went from 600 different legal and financial entities to really about 85. So to just put that in context for just a second. So the vote happened in May of 2018. The new structure went into place on January 1st of 2019. In 6 months, all of that was restructured and went into a kind of top-down model, right, that we now know as the new NAIFA. And so I was had the privilege of being there during that vote and seeing all of this discourse happen, and how everybody working it out and how that would look. And then in doing that, helping to be pivotal in building out that structure, because what that did was that allowed us at home office, where I would be considered being at home office, to put into place completely new programs. And it affords us the opportunity to do things we never had the opportunity to do before. Namely, we have one complete distribution system, right? So we have kind of top down, hey, we're all going to focus in on this particular program and everybody adopts it. Hey, we're all going to focus in on this particular program and we're all going to adopt it. And so that includes the brand. So imagine, we had all these different pieces. So part of it was putting in a new visual identity and having, again, all of these chapters adopt it. Part of it was putting in a new program. One of the ones that we put in was called NAIFA Live. It's one way that all of our members can meet together on a monthly basis to share in professional development, regardless of where they're located. And we did that all through Zoom. And mind you, we started that program also pre-COVID. So actually NAIFA was really ahead of the curve in bringing in a lot of the technology and making a lot of things digital to break down those geographic boundaries so we can more easily create networks, we can more easily create community, right? And we can build that kind of coast to coast membership. And so that's some of the programs that we've been able to do. So that's kind of when I plugged in, and a little bit about the background about why it was so interesting as a brand, and really such an incredible challenge, because you had all of these identities that were closely held by, individuals. I mean, membership in an association, especially NAIFA, and maybe I'll just talk about this one for a second, because this is where it's really difficult. It's been the most difficult brand I've ever worked on. It's because you have to understand that when it comes to NAIFA, this isn't on somebody else's dime. This is an individual member really saying, look, I'm going to take my money from my business and I'm going to support this association, and I'm going to belong. I'm going to belong to my professional association. I'm going to participate in my professional association. I'm going to take my time, right? And I'm going to divert it maybe for making that client call or that prospect call. And I'm going to make sure that I invest it into my industry, my business, to kind of do something that's above and beyond just my own personal gain, right? It's for the good of, at that point, the clients that I serve at the community level. It's for the good of the state, right? In which I work. It's for the good of the nation, which I'm a citizen. So all of that together makes for a very personal approach to understanding NAIFA membership. And again, when you're talking about getting personal now, NAIFA, the brand of NAIFA is a little closer to, it's what I found was we hadn't really connected the dots there. When it was before, in our previous structure, it was very personal because I would physically go and meet, like Chris, you're in Chicagoland. So you would physically go and meet with, X number of people at a monthly meeting and see them and be able to talk to them and shake hands with them and have lunch with them, et cetera. And that was a very personal, very intimate relationship. Well, that's how NAIFA had been for, again, 128 years. We had the challenge of how do you take that feeling, that intimate feeling of having a colleague, right, of having a community that cares, and how do you make that on a national level where people still feel that, right? And they feel that pulse of belonging, regardless of where they're located, regardless of what age they are, from whence they came, how long they've been in the business. How do you capture that feeling and make each person feel like they're connected to this kind of this association, right? That's kind of this out there entity. So for me, it was a real challenge in trying to find out what are the commonalities about NAIFA members? Like, what makes a NAIFA member tick? Like, what makes a NAIFA member a member? And I got to the point, what I did my first year is I basically went into the field and I spent hundreds and hundreds of hours on the phone and going to meetings and talking. Luckily, it was pre-COVID, so we could still do that, meeting with NAIFA members and trying to figure them out. And NAIFA members are really interesting because they are, we say that NAIFA serves Main Street. So think about most main streets, and most main streets are this whole combination of different organizations, different businesses, different people. You've got different signs, you've got different styles of buildings, you've got historic buildings, you've got brand new buildings, right? It's this whole mix. And what I found was when I went into the NAIFA membership, we had exactly that. So whether it was the mix of people and they're coming from different backgrounds, or they're different practice areas, or they're serving different populations of, different groups of people, whatever the case might be, this idea of the mix, right? That this was like really the mix of NAIFA that kind of has a pulse to it, right? So if you're going to get a really good brand, if you're going to brand yourself, if you're going to brand someone else, you have to get something, you got to be able to get to the essence of what really resonates with somebody, right? Like you got to say it and somebody goes, oh, that's it. Like that is it. That's the brand. So to me, there's a pulse. There's like a pulse and a cadence that a brand has. And when you hit it, you know it because everybody goes, that's it. So literally I was working on the brand. And I was like, there's got to be like 3 things we do because we're NAIFA, our logo is a triangle. It's a pyramid, but it's a triangle for the most part when you look at it just in kind of 2D. So I'm like, what are these 3 points of that pyramid? Like, what's the cadence? What's that beat that NAIFA has? Like, what makes NAIFA really work? And that's when I kind of came up with back of the envelope, truly back of the envelope, still have the envelope and the date. And I dated it because I just knew it. And I said, the first thing we do, our basis, our foundation is advocacy, right? That's what we do. Like if we dropped everything else, we'd still do advocacy. So we advocate. The next thing that NAIFA members do, and they can't even help themselves. They are the biggest educators of each other in the world. They are the biggest sharing people. They're like, they don't have the whole mindset of a good NAIFA person is the glass is half full mentality. They're always growth mindset. And they're like constantly like, who you need to meet, what book you need to read, what I watch, the coach I use. They're always helping and paying it forward. Right. So they don't have a culture of kind of scarcity. They have a big culture of abundance. So that educate piece was so in the middle because it kind of got that cultural piece of it. And the third part was that differentiate, because what NAIFA members do that get it, that become the top members, is they understand how to use the belonging to their professional association. They understand how to use the pieces that are their own personal brand and be able to relay it to their clients to attract more clients and get more people covered in the business, right? They can actually utilize that. They're very good at coming up with that personal formula that they can then relate to people so that the right people kind of come to them that fit their practice, fit the mold, et cetera, so they can do the most good. And so for me, being able to study that and seeing those commonalities of NAIFA members is how I was able to kind of come up with the brand. And really, to me, once I had that eureka moment, it became the easiest brand in the world because I went, you know what, here's some basics of this brand. We're never going to use stock photos. Don't need them. We have the most diverse group out there. We've got people that love what they do. So you can see it come forward. When you take photos of them, they love to be photographed, right? I've never had a NAIFA member say, no, don't market me, Suzanne. Never happened yet, right? So we've got these very personable people. We said, hey, listen, the gold is in the membership. We don't need to go out and find some other case study or find research to talk about why NAIFA is great. It's really in the membership. All we had to do was really start really talking to members and then giving it a platform and getting it out there in the world. And so what I've been attempting to do the last couple of years is really build platforms, right? Make NAIFA into a platform for every advisor to be able to really utilize to get their own personal message out there, but united under kind of the flag of goodwill for the industry, if you will, to say that, like I am what it means to be a NAIFA member. Like I'm part of this organization that I've subscribed to a code of ethics, right? It means that I care about my clients, community, country. It means that I'm out there doing the right thing, right? For the right people. All of that becomes that mark of what it is to be a NAIFA member. And it's just been really a joy to be able to do that because it's all storytelling, right? And our NAIFA members are the best storytellers on earth. So it's really a matching up of just being able to get enough places where we can really give the mic over to a NAIFA member and say, go for it, let it rip, right? I mean, they know what they're trying to do. They're just trying to get their story out so more Americans say, wait, I should talk to this person. Like I too deserve an advisor and I should work with a NAIFA advisor. And so that piece of just getting the message out there has probably been the last quarter mile for the brand of really saying, how do we do that effectively, right? How do we get more NAIFA members exposure that, in my opinion, they so justly deserve? And so that's kind of probably a very long-winded way of saying that, NAIFA members are, as I like to say all the time, they're marketing gold. I mean, the only thing that's more marketable than a NAIFA member is a NAIFA member holding a puppy, right? It just doesn't get better than having really good people who are really trying to do good work in the community. And, they happen to also, a real hallmark of a NAIFA member is that they're also these multi-talented kind of Renaissance people who have these very interesting backgrounds and careers and hobbies. And there's just a lot of layers to them. So our people have a lot of depth. They're very salt to the earth, right? It's Main Street. Like they've got a lot to say. And so I'm delighted that I've just been able to give, a platform and more places for our NAIFA members to be able to speak and write and get the word out about what they're doing.
So Suzanne, you obviously are busy.
Yeah.
If I unpack some of what you said, I'm going to ask specifics because one of the things that I think we would like to do with this podcast is for people to walk away, not only inspired, but people to walk away with things that they could use on a day-to-day basis, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so with that being said, what is the difference between kind of, I guess, why is a brand important? Why is it important versus just this nebulous kind of, we're good people and we do good things, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's always a feel good, right? We do good things, but why is branding, not only branding yourself, but branding yourself alongside an organization that stands for something like NAIFA? Can you add some color to that?
Yeah. It's a really important, and by the way, the hardest thing to do is to brand yourself, right? Because you really do need somebody else to help you. It can come off as a little, just oftentimes it doesn't work if you don't have kind of a team around you helping you to brand yourself. You can come off as a little bit cheesy is probably the best way to put that. But the reason that you want to undertake branding to begin with is because it saves you time and money. And that's the bottom line. If you have a strong enough brand, if I'm walking in, when I pass by, something, let's say that I'm on travel and I'm going across the country and I'm in a brand new area and I don't know anything about this area, but I see a well-known brand. I see a Taco Bell, I see a McDonald's, I see, Starbucks, right? Any of these things that I see Cheesecake Factory, and I've been to any of these places. I already know that if I go there, I already have an expectation of what I'm going to get, right? And I can make decisions with my money based on my understanding of this kind of pre-made promise between the brand and myself. So I don't have to have extra thought pattern to research it, to understand it, to say, do I trust it or not? Is this worth my time, et cetera. It's already vetted, right? It's already approved, et cetera. And so I can go ahead and lower down really the amount of time and effort that I'm spending in making decisions. And if you're a creative person and you're trying to do things like spend energy in making relationships with people, if you're trying to spend energy in creating new ideas, you have got to get rid of extraneous decision-making and research to get laser focused in on what you're trying to do to really move the needle forward. So what you start doing with high-performing people is you start stripping away or outsourcing anything that you can get rid of so you can stay laser focused on what you're trying to do to advance the ball. And so when it comes to a brand, that's one of the best reasons to do it. You get a visual identity, and branding has different components, right? A visual identity, like I said, it has a tone to it. It has a pace to it, right? People, you write the same way about it. You talk the same way about it. So it's a lot more than a logo. When you have that whole gestalt, you have that whole feeling of the brand, and then it's out there and people know it and rely on it, right? Then people can say, okay, you're already skipping a couple of steps. You don't have to sit there and say, hey, I'm Chris Gandy. No, I really am a trusted advisor. No, this is what this is, et cetera. You're already jumping that piece of it. And you're saying, look, I'm a known quantity that I'm already vetted. People trust me. I'm already doing the work, and you're already setting yourself apart from the competition. So membership in NAIFA, so that's you telling people, right? You got to convince them. But what is actually more effective than you trying to convince someone that you are an authentic source that should be trusted? Well, what's more effective than that is having somebody give you the peer review, right? And saying, no, we actually have other, peer approval, right? To say that there is some sort of piece there to say, you know who you need Chris Gandy. And if I'm already a trusted resource to you and I tell you you need Chris Gandy, well, then that kind of social proof is much higher. And I'm just going to already go to the point of saying, you know who I should call? My friend said Chris Gandy, I should call Chris Gandy. You know who Chris Gandy works with? Well, maybe I should call Chris Gandy. So we're trying to accelerate that referral process as well. So being part of NAIFA means that you're part of a neutral 132-year-old institution and organization that has stood the test of time to say, these are our members and we stand behind them. In order to be a member, you have to be this type of, person, ascribe to the code of ethics, all these things. And so when you do that, it gives you that extra level, that extra kind of a sheen, if you will, that extra coat and layer of authenticity that really can help an advisor, again, accelerate the trust factor, the rapport building, and get into what the actual problems are so you can really help your clients. And so that's a big piece of brand. It's a time and efficiency thing. And again, the last kind of piece of, besides for time and consistency, the time and efficiency is consistency. Consistency is the hallmark of a professional. True professionals, right, are consistent. It is the hardest part to get to. It's getting to a consistency, repeatable over and over and over again. And being part of that brand, having that piece to it allows you to really develop that. And again, to be able to say that this is going to be the same thing each and every time. And those are some of the factors that, one, make a brand, two, make a lot of sense for you to pair your personal brand with the brand of a neutral third-party organization like NAIFA that just kind of continues to elevate you up another notch, another notch, another notch.
So Suzanne, NAIFA members aren't just walking around on the street with t-shirts on saying, hey, I want to be a NAIFA member. Or, how do you find these people? How do you know a NAIFA member versus a non-NAIFA? At the end of the day, we don't walk around and identify individuals as NAIFA members. So what are some of the true kind of guiding principles, would you say, that you can identify? You can say, that's a NAIFA member. Like, what would you say some of those things are? How do you know a person should be a member?
For sure, that it's the mentality of pay it forward. That is in every NAIFA member, you'll find the mentality of pay it forward. Look, NAIFA members are ambitious. They want to excel. They want to be in that top 1%, right? They're on their way. They're continuous improvement junkies, always looking to get better. But the big difference is not at someone else's expense. And that might be a nuance, but that's a big difference. So there's a what's in it for me, but it's the what's in it for me so I can actually do better for out there in the community, right? And that is small, but a big one. So NAIFA members are givers, flat bottom line. So a lot of times I come up to a NAIFA member, a prospective member, and I'm listening to them talk, and it's the questions they ask, right? It's not all one-sided. They're very good listeners. They're really interested in people, very curious, very interested in finding out like what's your deal? What's your story? Where did you come from? And without judgment, just really interested to know. And then they really want to understand things like, okay, well, how do I plug into that? Like, what's different about us, or what's the same? And like, that's interesting. And they're just kind of a little bit, very gregarious, of course, et cetera. But they've also always taken on leadership roles. And you find a NAIFA member, you're like, tell me, it starts from the very get-go. It's like, so let me guess. In kindergarten, you're the one that was like the helping, help the teacher. You were a patrol, right? So you were like, did patrol duty. You were in student council. You were the team captain. You were, one of the starting people in your sports team. You were, in church or synagogue or, temple or whatever. And you did all these things. Like, you just see it over and over again. And typically they're the same people, and they've grown up and they're still doing the same things. They're looking for, it's in them to say, they're the people that say, like, can anybody help? And their hands already going up, right? They're just have it kind of in the DNA to help and want to be part of a community and help everybody rise. And I think that's that's how I know it's a NAIFA member. They don't ask questions like, well, what do I get? Like for every $5 I spend, what do I get? Like that's just not a NAIFA member kind of example. I mean, they just don't think that way. They're like, okay, hold on. So give me the value proposition, give me the piece of like, so I can understand it. How do I utilize this? And like, what's the bigger picture, right? What's the bigger meaning of this? And I also think, by the way, it's the reason why NAFA members stay in the business longer, they do better, and they bring a lot of people along the way. It's because they are kind of oriented that way and they want to help people, right? So they end up being, they don't kind of flush out of the business because they're really good at, one, asking for help, and two, taking help, right? They're good at being mentored, and they would then therefore want to mentor others. And so it becomes a real community of kind of do-gooders and like self-helpers, but also help each other people, right? And that resonates in the brand. So that's why we call it, it's a community that cares. I mean, one of the things I tell all new members is that, anytime you join a new team or organization, or, you just got a new job, you're trying to understand the ins and outs and the protocols and the, what's really going on, like what's really the culture. So I fast tracked that for new members. And I said, listen, NAFA members love new members. All you have to do is walk in and say, hey, I'm new. Right? I said, you can pick up the phone and call any NAFA member in the country and say, hi, I'm a new NAFA member. I'd like to get to know you. And they say, great. I can either talk right now or let's book a time. But that's the nature of how NAFA is. You're already walking into a society of over 20,000 people who are ready to help. Right. And it's the same thing. We have so many stories with people saying this business is hard and I would have quit if I didn't have a NAFA member. Like, somebody would say, you call me up. If you think you're going to quit, you call me up and we're going to figure something out for you. And that's kind of the nature, I think, of the people that make up NAFA. And it has, again, it's in the heart. It's who the people are. It's the DNA. I find NAFA members have a very similar DNA, regardless of any of the other, demographics or psychographics or any of that. They're the same people. They're the same type of people who want to do that. And again, no surprise that their businesses abound because they want to help and support, and they love to see people thrive. They love it, right? They want to see other people do well too. And that's kind of probably one of the coolest things I think about NAFA members is that, like I said, it's not a, if you win, I lose. It's not a zero-sum game. Like literally people are thrilled to find out that you've done really well and they celebrate you. And who doesn't want to be part of a group that, celebrates you? Most adults don't have enough of that. So it's a nice, it's a nice thing to plug into.
I would, if I could wrap my arms around the people that I've spent the time with during my journey in NAFA, I would say the words that would describe them would be passionate. I would say unique, right? And I would say purpose-driven. I would say those would be the three description words for individuals that I've come into touch with throughout the industry, throughout the country, as being a part of NAFA, and really givers. So you're exactly right when you say that. NAFA members, what do they do though? I mean, do they just come together and kind of just really tell each other how wonderful they are? I mean, what is it that what is it that we do as NAFA?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, I think what NAFA members find so rewarding about participating in NAFA is that, one, a lot of times maybe, their partner, maybe not their business partner if they have one, but I mean, their life partner, et cetera, they don't really get what they maybe talk about, et cetera, and they need some new ideas for it. So it kind of gives a place where they can kind of go and talk shop, right? And so they're able to have that kind of camaraderie and networking and say, listen, I got a case and here's this situation, right? Guy's 57. He owns an electrical, business. He's running 7 vans. He just got divorced from his wife. They have 3 kids. So like, whatever the case might be, and they can talk through it with other colleagues and peers. So that, I think that's one whole piece of it. They can do that. People understand them. They can kind of get into the nuts and bolts of the case, of the work that they're actually doing. The second piece, though, is what NAFA members really do is there's that piece, and then there's the actual advocacy piece, and that's probably the least understood by people who aren't members, which is that NAIFA members will actually go and meet their state and congressional leaders in person to talk about laws and what their clients are doing and what's going to happen, and like how inflation affects them, and what would happen if like all of a sudden we started taxing life insurance benefits and things like that, death benefits, and really give that face to face. They're the voice of the clients that they serve. And those legislators, these elected officials, oftentimes this is not their, this is not their wheelhouse. They don't know this subject. They really listen because the NAFA members know their clients, and these clients are people that are in their neighbors and friends, and they're the ones who vote. So it's a very, it's a different kind of a stewardship, right? To go in and say, well, yeah, I've got my business. So all day I'm trying to develop clients, keep my clients, represent my business. Now I'm doing it at the next level. So I'm now talking about representing not just my business, my clients, I'm now representing my industry. And that's a whole different level. So when you really get the NAFA members who are what I would consider like kicking at all cylinders, and they get it right away, they're like, I'm out there making a difference in the industry. And that's a whole different level. That's, that's much higher than my clients, right? What's happening in the community. Now we're at that state and national level. And that's a powerful thing. When you combine all that, you come home from the end of a long week as a financial advisor and you say, what did I get done this week? Yeah, that feels pretty good. So that's a lot of what then, and again, what does it look like in brass tacks? In brass tacks, it means like somebody, a NAFA staff person has helped you set up a meeting, and you go and you sit down and you've got some talking points and people debrief you and you have the conversation. So you're just making sure that you now are really being an ambassador on behalf of NAFA, out talking to elected officials, whether they're a regulator or a legislator, making sure that they understand, just saying, hey, I'm here to be a resource, right? So I'm here to help out and make sure that we do the right things for the country, and we've got a healthy economy. I think sometimes we forget. So NAFA members as a whole, you put that together, you're looking at them supporting 90 million American families, right? And not to mention all the small businesses out there. That's the backbone of the American economy. That's a big thing, right? That feels really good to be a part of that. So I think those are the pieces that NAFA members do.
Suzanne, that's a swanky mic you have over there.
Yeah.
Hopefully I can get a swanky mic like that if I'm a NAFA member. Is that the story? Swanky mic.
Swanky mic.
NAFA members.
Well, you get this.
So we attract more members. I mean, how do we get more members in this? I mean, it sounds like being a part of NAFA is like this cool badge. I can be a part of this cool group. I can hang out with cool people and get to know people. And at the end of the day, though, how do we get more people to join this association and be a part of this, call it grassroots efforts to impact others? How do we get more people involved?
I think it's what everybody would love it to just be like a wave the magic wand and it just happens. But really it's taking this organization and it's giving a voice to all the members who currently are members and are this passionate, all the things you said, passionate and purpose driven, and saying, go forth and tell other people, right? And then using platforms like this and our podcast and new media to be able to get the word out. So for so many years, NAFA has always been there. 132 years we've been there, but somewhere along the line, we just stopped telling people. Like people, it's, and you see this with brands, right? All of a sudden a brand kind of goes into a little bit like people think it's gone into oblivion, and all of a sudden it's back. I'm a sports junkie. So I don't know if anybody out there is thinking about sports brands, but one that's kind of gone to the wayside and come back is things like a Lacoste Izod. Like that kind of went by the wayside, or like Champion is back, right? As a brand for clothing and athletic gear. So it's not atypical that brands could kind of go into almost a hibernation status and then kind of reemerge as kind of this new cool thing. Think about a couple of years ago that was like, if you haven't, Buick kind of remade itself and came back. If you haven't seen, like, this is not your father's Oldsmobile, right? That whole concept is where we are with NAFA. And now it's really getting the word out to a whole new group of advisors out there who maybe never even heard of NAFA, right? Or really then also getting the word back out to people who have been in the industry for 30, 40 years, and they have a concept of NAFA that's really just purely outdated and archaic. So it's utilizing every channel we have possible to be able to inform people like, this is your professional association. And this is why you should do it. And the big difference that's difficult is it used to be that, the stories, if you talk to are people that have been here 20, 30 years, like, yeah, my manager said I have to do it, right? Or my company said I had to do it. Well, those days are gone for the most part. We'd love them to come back. We'd love managers to say, you know what you need? You need NAIFA. But in the meantime, we're going direct to advisors and saying, listen, this is between you and you, right? This is an investment. And so are you worth it? And if you're worth it, you're going to invest in the tools and techniques and resources. And part of that is people to make sure that you are that successful piece. And if you really want to do it, you're going to spend more time and volunteer and spend more time with people like a Chris Gandy, so we can learn from them, et cetera, and be inspired by them and be able to really grow my business and stay there. And it's a commitment. People that are new to the business, I mean, and a couple of years in, et cetera, the nice thing about being a financial advisor is you're building your own business. So this is like, what are the tools and resources to invest in your business? And Chris, I'd probably throw that back on you and say, when do you make that switch between saying, I'm working for a paycheck versus saying, I'm actually building a business and this business needs to be fed and nurtured. And in order to do that, here are the things I need to do as its owner. And I think that's the piece that we're trying to get the message out on, because nobody's been repping NAIFA in a consistent way, in many years. And so since we've had this kind of new change since 2019, we're beating the drum as loud as we can on all the things that are NAIFA and trying to get that word out.
So Suzanne, as we kind of put our arms, I mean, branding and marketing is such a big nebulous thing,
Yeah.
right? I think we try as advisors we're interdependent, right? So we use companies and we use resources, things that have been around a long period of time. I think as a new advisor, one of the easiest things to do is to plug into an association or an organization that represents the similar type of platform. So as we kind of wrap our arms around branding and marketing, we have access to you. If you're a NAIFA member, if you're not a NAIFA member, become a NAIFA member today at NAIFA.org. But Suzanne, as we wrap up today, your proudest NAIFA moment is?
Gosh, there's so many.
Give me one.
I really think it's seeing, wow, just one is hard to say. I love seeing our award winners, being able to select our award winners and then being able to make those calls and say, you're the diversity champion of the year, right? And being present for that, saying you're one of the national 4 under 40 winners, and being able to put them out there and to be able to do that is just something that's fantastic. Here's another one, because I have a lot. For many years, the magazine was just a digital edition. I was lucky and fortunate enough to be able to bring it back in print. And that first edition, that thing came off the press, and I said, wow, we've got a magazine again, and being able to put people on the cover and tell their stories, that's probably one of my top proudest moments.
We have our every month we have it. It's in our office, and it's on our credenza when you walk in. So it's a really cool publication. Again, congratulations on bringing that back to life. And as we kind of have a little bit of fun with our podcast, our collective, right? I like to kind of end with kind of a shotgun approach of I ask you a question, first thing comes to mind, I need an answer from you, and this is kind of fun. So sit back, relax, and kind of see where we go. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I've been sourced some questions now, Suzanne. So people gave me some questions, but I got some questions on my own because that wouldn't be speed if you knew the questions, right? So first question is favorite breakfast cereal.
Oh, Rice Chex.
Brand you hope never comes back.
Sun-In. I think Sun-In's still a brand, but the hair product, that was terrible. Yeah.
Brand you hope comes back and bigger than it was before.
Oh, dating myself, but G, your hair smells terrific. Love that brand. Everybody loved that brand.
Your favorite speaker?
Chris Gandy or someone else? Is there someone else I should pick on that one?
You talk to me on a regular. I don't count. All right. Last one is
on that one. Honestly, I would say I'd probably say Oprah. I'm still a diehard Oprah fan to this day. I just, love hearing her and all the work that she's doing. By the way, is my dream job, I would be Oprah and then be able to open a school like she did. I think that's the coolest thing ever.
Awesome. And last but not least, the best advice you ever got from a mentor.
Oh, it's one of my favorite phrases, actually. And I believe Eleanor Roosevelt they ascribe it to her, but it's that most people tiptoe softly through life to arrive safely at death. So go for it. You only live once. What are you waiting for? Take the risk, and go for it. And I think that's been a great piece of advice. I love that phrase.
Suzanne, you've said it all. And thank you so much for sitting on the other side of that of the conversation today. Typically, it's you and I sitting on the same side of the conversation, interviewing someone else, but I get a chance to interview you today. You are wonderful, and you are awesome at what you do. If you don't know Suzanne, send her an email, connect with her on LinkedIn. She is a great resource. Anything and everything you want to know about marketing for NAIFA, touch base with Suzanne. With that being said, we're going to say goodbye to Suzanne, and thank you for tuning in to Advisor Today podcast, where we educate, we empower, and we come together collectively to uplift everyone to make this career a wonderful career together. Thank you, Suzanne. We appreciate it. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you soon on our next podcast.